Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to the end of the week, or for some of you, the rest of you, maybe starting the weekend. Have fun. Today we're talking about money, and this is, I'm sure, what most of you think when you talk about issues in EMS and problems in EMS. It all comes back to money. And yes, in life, if you want to figure out what's really going on behind closed doors, you follow the fucking money. But anyway, how is money part of this whole mess? Well, there's a couple of things. One, money, unfortunately, often trumps best medical practice. Money also can trump best mental health practices. And unfortunately, there's times where it can trump safety practices, and not in the way you would think. Because what are we seeing a lot more of now? Oh, well, there's these cameras everywhere. There's all of these, tattle boxes in the trucks, whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. So, talking about, money trumping best medical practice. Well, part of medical practice is honesty and integrity. And unfortunately, what is more important most of the time is compensation rather than accurate documentation. And I understand. Can't do this for free. There needs to be income somehow, whether it's taxpayer based, whether it's, billing calls, whatever. I get it. I do. Nobody's going to deny that. But if there's one thing we have seen, especially in the last, 100 years, it's that ethical business practices ultimately win. And let me caveat that. Yes, there's a lot of bad faith actors out there who make a lot of fucking money doing horrible things. We can all think of a handful of those. But you also have to realize there's thousands, if not millions, of other business owners out there who are incredibly successful people, making millions into the billions of dollars, who are perfectly good people. And their businesses are thriving. And they're doing just fine. So for longevity and stability, you do need some ethics. And it's unfortunately something we're not super good at in public service. We're really not. It's the number one thing we have problems with in public service, not just EMS, law enforcement, and fire service. Ethics. It gets us every fucking time. People are the common denominator problem. Unfortunately, the cheapest option is what dictates medical treatment options for providers. I'm ashamed to say that I have seen that dictate protocol. And I get it. We can't do this for free. But if you're actually hiring competent providers, training them well, treating them appropriately to make appropriate clinical decisions, then that's what you should support. You should find the money to make that work. And unfortunately, that's just not always the case. There's a lot more concern with making sure that members of management have really nice take-home trucks when we have problems with having enough money for things that we actually need to be doing. So that's a problem. Yes, I understand being frugal is important, but priorities are not well established because, like I said, we'll spend all this money on making sure, members of administration have really nice vehicles. And I'm not just talking about, like a little nice sedan. No, I'm talking about like some nice F-250s. Expensive fucking trucks for people that don't run calls. And it's one thing if you run calls. If you're a chief or a director that runs calls, abso-fucking-lutely. Let's get you some good shit. Stock it out. Let's go run some calls. But if you don't run calls, in my opinion, you shouldn't have a fucking take-home vehicle. Because what's the point? Why do you need a take-home vehicle? You're not doing anything with it. You're not doing anything for the agency. Sure, the agency can reimburse your gas if you got to travel, or maybe have like a loaner car that they can just give out to people as needed. But for every member of admin to have one, no. And let me caveat that, if you were having problems with paying your people appropriately and being able to pay for as up to date as you can technology to treat your patients effectively, if you're having trouble with that, you need to prioritize your budget a little better. And I don't care if it's, they're allotted this amount of money. Well, re-allot it. Give up the fucking vehicle. County councils, step up. It's not complicated. Money shouldn't be something that trumps best practices of care. It shouldn't be. I know this is very idealistic, and I'm not going to say that, I think we'll ever reach that point. But goddamn, it'd be nice to fucking try. Because the whole point of our existence is to take care of people. And if we're not doing the best that we can, taking advantage of the best tools that we can afford to do that, then what the fuck are we doing? Another problem where money trumps mental health practices. And this is a broad range thing. I think that we need to find a way to give people more options for mental health days, for sponsoring people going to therapy. It shouldn't, and I appreciate, I think it's at least in South Carolina, there's the EAP program, the Employee Assistance Program, where, if it covers a broad range of things. Where I've most heard it is if you have, say, a substance abuse problem and you need help. Well, you go through EAP to give you counseling, therapy, all that stuff. A couple of other things. But we need to be doing some more preventative care with mental health. We need to find some avenue to give people an option to have time off, because we work insane fucking schedules. The human body was not made to work for 24 fucking hours in a row. It's not. And even if we find, everybody has their own tips and tricks for how to do it, but even if you have those tips and tricks, eventually it catches up with you. I worked night shift for a decent number of years. Loved it. Had a great time until I didn't. My body caught up with me and said, this ain't cool. We're not doing this shit. So it's only a matter of time before it catches up to me with 24s. Even though my schedule right now is pretty fucking cool. 24 hours on, 72 hours off. Can't beat it. It's really great. But I know that there's a time limit on it. I know that it's not going to last forever. And I'm only 34. I'm not that old. I mean, some people say I'm old. In EMS years, I'm old. But outside of that, no, not really. But anyway, let's say you have all the best equipment, all the best medicines, the best protocols, but you're losing people to SI. You're losing people to, there are people who are just outright saying, fuck EMS, I want to go do something else. Shouldn't you invest some money in addressing that mental health problem? And I'm not just talking about FAST team. And no shade on, all these different peer support groups and trauma response teams. There's amazing people there, and I love that they volunteer their time to do it. And I think it's a wonderful thing that has its place, but it's not enough on its own. It is not. If you're only looking after people's mental health when it's crisis, that's not going to help anything. You should be investing in prevention. And this is one of those things where I think there's a lot of options out here, that there's a lot of room to try different things and experiment with different things that aren't even that expensive. And this is one of those things that should be more of a conversation. And that is going to vary from agency to agency. A 40-person department in, rural South Carolina is going to have very different needs than a massive agency like, say, in Washington, D.C., the people are going to have very different mental health needs that extend beyond the job. And that's where I think it's actually very dangerous for an agency to have a therapist on staff, because there's the potential for a massive conflict of interest. Massive. Where this person is being told things, and potentially either incriminating or just in general derogatory things by these providers. And I can only imagine there's a lot of pressure to relay all of that stuff to admin. Or I'm sure what has happened in departments that do this is somebody ends up fucking the therapist and hearing all these things and knowing all these things, and suddenly that's influencing decisions and so on and so forth. You've heard this story, I'm sure, many different times in different ways. So the fact that money, because okay, and if you don't believe me, how often have you seen crews run a bad call, or just they're running a lot of calls, they're fucking exhausted, they're falling asleep at the wheel, their call supervisor would be like, I need mercy, I need like 30 minutes to catch a nap, take a shit, get something to eat, I need a break, and to be told, well, suck it up. Okay, now obviously this is a nuanced discussion, because yes, there are people that abuse that, and there are a lot of people that, they run 2 calls and they're like, oh, I'm exhausted, I can't do it anymore, please help me, I cry mercy. I'm not talking about that. We all understand the difference. I shouldn't have to clarify that, but here we are. So if a crew's trying to call mercy, give them some mercy. There will always be calls holding. There will always be calls. But if you run your people so fucking hard that they're unaliving themselves, they're quitting the field completely, they're going to call out. They're going to find ways to call out. Why make this a fight if you do a little bit to take care of them? I don't know a single crew. I cannot think of a single crew at any agency that I've ever worked where if you told them, hey, you get a freebie, let's just say 30-minute break. Okay, 30 minutes, not that much. You get a freebie 30-minute break. You get to cry mercy at whatever point in the day you want. I can't think of a single crew who would be opposed to that. I mean, I would like hold on to that shit. I'd be like, hey, we're going to time this just right so that, we can go get lunch or, do whatever. Go see this particular food truck that's only, this location, this time, for a limited time. If you're given that, that's awesome. People are going to stick around. They're going to be grateful for that. Doesn't cost you anything really. Calls are always going to be there. Obviously, make sure people aren't doing them all at the same time, because you do need some people to run calls out there. But, it's a little thing. It's a little thing that can be done. There's agencies that will, give their people gift cards if they get held over for more than an hour. Cool. That's you know what? If I got a $5 gift card at, to Chick-fil-A, whenever I got held over, more than an hour, cool. I'm fine with that. Awesome. I'll stack them up. It's a good day. So we need to have a conversation about this and look for creative ways that, yes, maybe they cost a little bit of money. Maybe it's not the most efficient option. Maybe you're not going to get that bonus. Maybe you can't upgrade your take-home car this year. Cool. You have people out there that need help. And another thing where that money trumps, we said it trumps safety practices. Look at the aviation industry. I think the aviation industry, honestly, is doing this the best overall. From what I know, I think the aviation industry has pretty well got this on lock, where they acknowledge that amount of hours worked has a direct impact on your awareness, your concentration, and your capabilities as an individual. And people need breaks. That's why pilots are only allowed to have a certain amount of flight time in a 24-hour period. That's why crews are only allowed to run X number of calls without rest, in a certain time frame. And guess what? They're happy as can be about it. Now, obviously, are there logistic concerns with, say, a busy 911 ground service versus a flight service? Yes, absolutely, because the ground service is the front line. They have to go be out there. A helicopter is not typically just called by 911 and they go run a whole call by themselves without ever interacting with ground units or fire department. This just doesn't fucking happen. So I get that. I understand that. But we need to stop letting people work 96-hour shifts. I understand that you need calls run and that you depend on the income from those calls, but it is not worth the fucking risk. I'm not even talking about 48s. Not even talking about that. That's dangerous enough as it is. And I don't care. I don't care how slow your service is. 48s can be fucking dangerous. Because sure, we don't normally run that much. All it takes is one fucking day. One day for shit to break off, your people get exhausted, and make a lethal mistake. That's all it takes. One fucking day. Is it really worth it? Is it really fucking worth it? No, it's not. I'll answer it for you. I'll make it easier. It's not fucking worth it. So, we're all about like, we got road safety systems and we got cameras and we got all this. Cool. What are you doing about the people behind the wheel? And I don't mean in a punitive way. Punishing people for stuff as the default means of motivation just doesn't work. Like, this isn't healthy. But what about them? And no, you're not responsible for everybody's personal lives, but people's personal lives play into this. And our personal lives are usually a fucking mess because we work insane schedules. And that is the nature of the beast, that we have to have 24/7 coverage for EMS. That just is what it is. Obviously, the exception being certain private or IFT services. But we need to be figuring this out. We need to be figuring out some safety practices for this, because especially since we are technically under NHTSA and DOT. So like you would think that National Highway and Traffic Safety Administration would care about the well-being of people out on the road. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. I think that's something that we should talk about. But we're not, because why? Well, we need those slots filled. We need people out running calls. Cool. Great. Until they die in a car crash. Or they wreck because they're falling asleep at the fucking wheel, and they, their partner's life is in danger. Their patients' lives are in danger. Is that really worth it? Is that really fucking worth it? How about we focus on better retention so that we don't have so many holes that we need to have people working 72 and 96-hour shifts to fill said holes? How about we focus on doing right by our people rather than putting them in situations or allowing them to put themselves in situations where they're being set up for failure? And yes, I hear the whole, well, they signed up for it. That doesn't mean you should give it. My kids would sign up to eat cookies all day, every day if they could, but I'm not going to fucking let them, because that's not healthy for them. If they could, they would drink fucking Red Bulls. I'm not going to let them. Not right now. Just because somebody wants to do something and they agree to it, that doesn't mean that you should let them fucking do it. And another thing, when it comes to money and corruption in EMS, that underscores all of this. I would argue that this is the man behind the curtain. For the most part, Medicare and Medicaid. Medicare and Medicaid fraud is so fucking rampant in EMS. It is ridiculous. Because not only you have it's most pronounced in private services, because they have an even greater dependency on Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement. That truly is their bread and butter. and they can't transport a lot of their patients without Medicare and Medicaid authorization. But it happens in 911 too. I know of instances where at a agency I've previously worked at, charts were manipulated by billing personnel after validation. So after the crew member closed the call, submitted it, chart was manipulated for billing purposes. Happens. It does happen. Now, in those situations, obviously, the people out running calls, it's not their fault. They're just doing what they can. I understand we should, try to document in such a way that we don't necessarily shoot ourselves in the foot. But there's a difference between generalized documentation that is accurate, is truthful, that doesn't disqualify reimbursement, and outright manipulating data, outright manipulating narratives. That's unethical. And unfortunately, a lot of times in private services, the people on the ground are complicit in this. They are. And there's a lot of people that I think don't do it knowingly, but it happens. Personally, I think that the billing organizations, especially for private services, but all billing entities for agencies, should be third-party audited every quarter. I really do. Because I think if we did that, we'd start to see a lot of interesting trends and shit. And the body doing the auditing needs to be an external entity. It needs to be somebody unrelated. Because what do we often see? Oh, this is another fun thing that happens in EMS too, where you have people who are in positions of authority at one agency that are also members of, a certifying body, let's say CAS, for example. Just throwing that out there as a example for you. Do what you will with it. You have someone who is higher up at a agency that is also a member of CAS. Conflict of interest much? I think so. But what do I know? At the end of the day, unfortunately, money is a problem. We don't have enough of it. We need to find other ethical ways to make it. And I think that's a fun discussion we can have. I think there's, especially in this digital world, there's a lot of creative ways that agencies can come together and make some money and help each other with. It doesn't need to just be one agency at a time. Like, you can have multiple agencies band together to do this, but that requires some out of the box thinking and some non-traditional approaches to things, which you don't get when you have a good old boy system and you're never bringing in people from the outside who have those perspectives on things. But that aside, it's money, 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 money. It's always the problem. Money doesn't make you one thing or the other. Having a lot of money does not make you good or bad. Money is the best way to show who you really are. What you do with that money demonstrates who you are. If you're using funds ethically, supporting the people at your agency, you are doing everything you can to make sure they are treated fairly, they're compensated fairly, they're taken care of. Awesome. But if you're a shitbag, you're going to squirrel it away. And we'll end up hearing about you in the news at some point for Medicare and Medicaid fraud or embezzlement of funds or any number of financial crimes. So that's all I got for you guys. Thank you for joining me this week. It's been a lot of fun. I could go on rants for hours about a lot of these different topics, but I think we've got a pretty good starting point, and we can delve into some of these a little more later. So enjoy your weekend. I'll see you Monday. Bye-bye.